All right, good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the board meeting for September 13th, 2023, meeting of the Alberni Flagler Regional District. So first and foremost, we'll start with recognition that we're conducting our business today primarily on the territories of the Coopatchesit and Shot First Nations, and that we acknowledge and appreciate that fact. But since we do have meeting in a hybrid format, we do have folks who are coming to you live from various other territories as well, New Channel, Coast Salish perhaps, and so on and so forth. Now, because our meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format, we'll go to in-person introductions. We'll go around the room, so to speak, be on camera. So everybody who watches this live or watches this after the fact will know who's here. But we also have to do the same thing for folks who are on online as well, because our broadcast isn't in gallery format. It's actually in main speaker format. So we'll just need to make sure that we do that. So anybody watching will know who's here. Okay, we will now go to introductions, and we'll start on this side. My name is John Jack. I'm the representative for the Hooyat First Nations, as well as the chairperson. And we go counterclockwise. So we'll go this way.
Hello, Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services.
Debbie Haggard, appointed City Representative for the Regional District Board and Vice Chair.
Good afternoon, Penny Cody. I'm the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Director for Sprout Lake.
Good afternoon. I am the Director for Cherry Creek.
Thank you, Dr. Sparrow. Jack, do you want to?
Jack McClellan, alternate director for Beaufort.
Tom Steer, appointed director, District of Tofino.
Daniel Sayan, the CAO for the ACRD.
And online we have several folks. Let's start with Susan and then Bob.
Hi, I'm Susan Roth, Beaver Creek.
Bob Beckett, Area A, Banfield.
Thank you. Vida, then Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn McEwen, District of Ucluelet.
And Vida.
Beta Sega, Long Beach Area C.
Thank you. Kirsten and then Mavana.
Kirsten Johnson, Tokwat Nation.
Lupana Mastrangelo, Ucluelet First Nation.
And I think I see Shari. Go ahead.
Shari Minions, Mayor for the City of Port Alberni.
Okay, we do have folks who have computers in the boardroom who are connected just in case they need to see any chats or do anything with the settings, but we also have staff members as well as attendees who will be able to introduce themselves when they come on screen. All right. So before we get to the approval of the agenda, sorry, go ahead, Director. Go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't think that we could sign in. We had to go through the YouTube or the live stream rather than. Thank you.
Yes, so there's a preference for directors to go through this format over here, and then staff that are on are still monitoring for chat and whatnot. That was the request from our IT.
And actually, Janice isn't actually in the room, so I guess that makes sense. So, okay. So with that in mind, we will get to the approval of the agenda. But first, I'm wondering if Daniel, if you could make an intro, or yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up because in the month of September, as we are all, or many of us are in our orange shirts today, just re-emphasizing the importance of the fact that every child matters and the impacts of residential schools and the resiliency of First Nations communities across the continent. I had a discussion with Director Coots not so long ago, and Director Coots had asked if I could look into a local artist who's producing copper pins that say "Every Child Matters." They look a little tarnished to start, and over time they will get more and more orange, I'm told from the artist, and that's just the nature of this copper. But seeing as we're going to UBCM next week, we thought it would be really good for us to have it on our lapel because we're not always in a position where we can be in t-shirts for the meetings that we have. And so this is a good way for us to show that support and show that solidarity. And if anyone asks, we can point them in that direction. So we have these going around for all board members to take that are here today. If you are not here today and you're online and you are joining us at UBCM, Wendy will have these. So when she sees you at UBCM, she can hand them out. And if you're not here today and not going to UBCM, we will put one in your mailbox here at the office. So when you do come in, you can pick it up. But there's one for every board member.
Thank you for that, Daniel. Okay, so that brings us to the main agenda of the day. So we do have an approval of the agenda in front of us. We don't have any late items, nor do we have any new materials to consider. So we could have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Thank you, Director Sparrow and Director Cote. Any further comments? Seeing none. All of those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item 3, declarations. Does anyone have any declarations of gifts or conflicts of interest? Director Haggard.
Thank you. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest with 5B because I'm a member of the Alberni Valley Golf Club.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any others? Okay, seeing none, that brings us into the adoption of minutes under item 4A is the Board of Directors meeting minutes for August 23rd, 2023. Director Cote, so moved. Thank you. Seconded by Director Sparrow. Any comments, errors, omissions, additions? Seeing none. All of those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item B, which is the Alberni Valley and Banfield Services Committee dated August 23rd, 2023. Thank you, Dr. Steer. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Haggard. Any comments, questions, etc.? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 4C, which is the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee meeting dated August 24th, 2023. Thank you, Dr. Steer. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Cote. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Thank you. And finally, we have item D, the Banfield Water Advisory Committee meeting dated August 29th, 2023. Thank you, Director Steer, for moving. Do we have a seconder? Director Beckett, thank you. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us into petitions, delegations, and presentations. Normally speaking, there are 10-minute presentations. If you near about 10 minutes, I may interrupt you to ask the board if we can continue. The answer is usually yes. I might give you 1 or 2 extra minutes if it seems like you're in the last couple of slides or near the end of your presentation. And I may hold up a finger, 1 or 2 fingers, and that's how many minutes you have left, if I'm keeping that much track. Before we get to the presentations themselves, we do have some introductions of new staff, and we have Terry here. Please, go ahead.
For sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, we get you ladies on the side. We're trying to get it so that the people online can see the new employees as well. So I'm pleased to introduce 3 new finance team members today. So Mercy, if you could give a little wave, is responsible for payroll and other upper level financial operations in her role as accountant. She moved to the Alberni Valley a couple of years ago and comes to us from the private sector. She enjoys the outdoor activities that come from living in the valley. Maddie is right here, is responsible for accounts receivable, leases, and other middle level accounting operations in her role as assistant accountant. Maddie is a Port Alberni girl who spent the last few years living on the mainland and is currently in her last semester of her Bachelor of Business Administration at Douglas College. And she's happy to be settling back in her hometown. And Lindsay is responsible for accounts payable and utility billing in her role as the accounting clerk. Lindsay comes to us from the district of Tofino. Sorry about that, Tom. And has recently located to the Alberni Valley. In her spare time, she's working on renovating and updating her new home. So I'm excited to work with all three of these new employees, and I'm happy to say that the finance team is now fully staffed. So thanks.
Well, that is great to hear. Thank you for their introductions, and welcome to the team. Okay. So next up, we have Mr. Ken Sander from the Alberni Golf Club. It's a request for tax exemption. So while he's getting up to speak, Director Haberger will head out. Thank you. Wow. Could you use the microphone? There's a red button there. Yeah, like a talk button.
There we go. Okay. Now I'll try not to blast your ears out. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here to give you a little bit of an update on the activities at the Alberni Golf Club for the past year. I'm the president of the golf club, and I've been in front of this board for many years, ever since we learned that there was a tax exemption available for nonprofits. I've been here, and the board has been very supportive over the years, and I just want to thank all of you for doing that, and we hope we get your continued support. As for this year that has just passed, I think we finally reached the end of the major impacts that COVID had on us. You know, it was a bit of a setback. There were a number of expenses and challenges to our business. We weathered that reasonably well. And if anything, I would say the upside of COVID was that we acquired a bunch of new golfers, because when COVID closed everything else down, one thing that people could still do was play golf. So fortunately, we got a bunch of new members, a bunch of young members, intermediate type folks, and this was really a shot in the arm for us, because we have a very aging membership, and so this was a good thing. And of course, we're hoping that these young folks will stick with us for the years to come. They've been a real pleasant addition, I might say. This has been a real positive, but every time you think you're moving forward, you tend to take a little bit of a step back. And this winter was kind of like that for us. In one of our winter storms, we received some very severe damage to our driving range. One of the large poles holding up the netting up one side was snapped in half and is kind of hanging there. And when we started investigating how we were going to repair this thing, we realized pretty quickly that the whole side of the range is pretty aged and the poles are mostly rotten. So, you know, a small problem turned into a big problem. So we are just in the process of having people in to work on that. They should have started on Monday. I've been out of town, so I assume they started, but I don't really know that they did. But anyway, we're looking at about a $200,000 price tag to fix that part of our infrastructure. And of course, for a nonprofit organization, that is definitely a major blow. The other thing that happened this year, of course, as we all know, that most of the small businesses of our community and our area were affected by the road closure, and we were no exception. You know, I've been up here over the years telling about the number of people that come from out of town to play our golf course, and it's in the hundreds, and results in hundreds of rounds, thousands of dollars coming to the community. We have lots of tournaments that people come from around the island and around the province for. And this year, pretty much all of them were canceled. People just couldn't get here, and we couldn't rely on having the tournaments. So that was a big hit for us in terms of revenue, and we'll try to recover that somehow. And hopefully next year, everybody will be anxious to get back here. But we're still very busy. I guess the upside was that all these young folks that couldn't get out of town continued to play golf. So we didn't get a lot of out-of-town people this year, but we did get a lot of local activity. So it's very beneficial for us. The one tournament that did survive, however, was our charity classic, which has been going on for about 27 or 28 years. And is very well supported by our community. It went ahead full scale, even though, you know, not many people from out of town came for it. But the charity tournament raised over $100,000 for local charities, which is pretty amazing for a one-day activity. As always, we're trying to improve our infrastructure and stay current in the golf industry. It's a very competitive industry, and people have lots of choices as to where they can go. So we're constantly trying to improve our course, and I think that it's in the best shape and has the best amenities that it has ever had. And part of the reason for that is that we have been in it together. The regional district has been very supportive of us over the years, and we hope that you continue to recognize the importance of this request and the importance of the exemption to our activities. We still do everything pretty much on a volunteer basis. We do not have enough funds to hire management. So the entire management and operation of the course is run by directors and volunteers. Of course, we have a staff of about 40, which on our payroll, and you know, we try to keep everything local. So we have been able to survive because of the continued support. And we hope that the board will continue to see the validity of this request and support us in granting the exemption again this year. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, and hope to see you again. Just waiting a bit for Director Haggard to come back. Great. Welcome back, Director Haggard. So next up, we have item 5C. We have Mr. John Buttery and Mr. CJ Rep here with a summary on overview of the work to date on the aquatics feasibility study. John or CJ, who's going to speak first? John? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for inviting us to be here today and share some of our progress on the aquatic feasibility study. My name is John Buttery. I'm with HCMA Architecture and Design. I'm an architect in the Victoria office working on the ACRD aquatics feasibility study. And I will share my screen unless, CJ, do you want to do an introduction? No, okay. So please bear with me for one moment. Okay, can you see my screen there? If someone could give me an audio cue, that would be great because I can't see anyone anymore.
No, we can't see your presentation. You might need permission to share. Janice, if that's already there, then just let us know.
You would have permission.
Okay.
Oh. There you go, John. It's working now.
There we go.
There, you can see it now?
Yeah. Okay, so we can see your screen, but you need to bring
the wrong screen. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, apologies. So HCMA Architecture and Design. Oh, I have to shift this here. Pardon me. Sorry about that. HCMA Architecture and Design and GDH Solutions are we are the consultants leading the ACRD Aquatic Center feasibility study, reviewing the potential future development of an indoor aquatic facility within the Alberni Valley. I'm going to do my best to provide a quick overview of what's happened so far in the study. In terms of time, I'll try and keep it to 10 minutes. So I'll try and keep it concise. Please don't be concerned if you don't have time to read through each slide. This information is all included in technical memos number 1 and 2, which I believe you have received. So the phases of the project we have completed so far, which I'll give an overview of, are review of existing systems and the needs benefit assessment and community engagement. In review of existing systems, we examined the existing Echo Aquatic Center and conducted a benchmarking exercise where communities across BC were reviewed to understand how their aquatic centers are funded, owned, and operated. The needs benefit assessment was the first round of public engagement where the community's aquatic needs were reviewed through open houses and a public survey. The outcomes from these 2 phases are included within technical memos 1 and 2, which we'll give some highlights of today. So we're currently in the prioritizing options phase, where we are synthesizing the public feedback into aquatic facility options that will be presented back to the public for feedback during the next phase of the community engagement. At the end of the study, a final report, which includes the outcomes from each phase, will be prepared to guide the next steps of the ACRD. So a quick overview of some of the existing systems work to date. So we know Echo Aquatic Center has been an important part of your community since it was built in 1967, but it's now 56 years old and has not had a significant upgrade in its lifetime, resulting in rising maintenance costs that will continue to increase as major components will need repair and replacement. There may come a time in the near future when the Echo Pool is no longer able to meet the needs of the region's growing population. Echo is owned and operated by the City of Port Alberni with financial contributions from Sprout Lake, Beaver Creek, and Cherry Creek. And then the admissions and programs fees vary for city and non-city residents, being more expensive or a higher cost for non-city residents. If we look at the usage trends at Echo over the past 5 years, we can see that while membership purchases have not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels, swimming lesson registration in 2022 was nearly double what it was in 2018, and visitor numbers overall are higher than in any previous 4 years. We also heard in the public engagement that people would use the pool more frequently if the operating hours were increased, which all of this is telling us that there's a strong demand for access to aquatics in the region and that the current facility remains an important asset to the community. So we'll just touch on a review of some of the benchmarking. So the purpose of benchmarking is to learn from the experience of other communities who have planned and developed their own aquatic centers. For this study, 13 communities across British Columbia with aquatic facilities were chosen as benchmark facilities to learn from. Now, in technical memo 1, this information is all included. There is a summary at the beginning, and then there's also an appendix that includes information for each community. But what we know is that they're all facing similar challenges, establishing funding, ownership, and operational models, and approach them in a variety of ways. But they're finding success when consensus between areas is established. So as I mentioned, the detail for each community is included within technical memo 1. So I'll just go over a few of the commonalities and key learnings here. So some of the commonalities relating to funding, ownership, and governance of these benchmark communities included within the report are the facilities were government owned and operated. There were clear agreements for cost sharing formulas and operational models. Grant support was achieved by many, and there were community fundraising and tax levies. If we look at some of the key learnings included in the report, they include the regional district taking the lead and ensuring fair contributions and input from all areas within the regional district boundaries. A process of involving all communities in the planning of a new facility is important for gaining consensus and clarity. Ensuring that areas who do not participate financially clearly communicate this to their communities so they understand the implications of potential extra user fees or lack of access and the importance of starting to work on the governance structure as soon as possible, including financial contribution formulas. So during the initial stages of the project, HCMA facilitated a workshop with the advisory committee to establish a common vision for the project. The goal of the workshop was to create a unifying vision for the future aquatic center, as well as key principles that support the vision and help guide the larger community engagement process. The outcome of the workshop was a vision statement and 6 guiding principles established by the advisory committee. They are: the vision, the Alberni Aquatic Center will be an inspirational, culturally diversified and multifaceted space that will showcase our community's spirit and uniqueness, a respectful, inclusive and welcoming gathering place that promotes health and well-being for users, all users and abilities. The guiding principles: the Alberni Valley Aquatic Center will be financially responsible to the valley's economic conditions by designing within its collective means. This will consider both capital and ongoing operational budgets. Inclusive, accessible for all people, and will provide a safe and trusted environment that offers a strong sense of belonging. Best in class, a facility that demonstrates industry and environmental best practices in terms of aquatic and building performance standards. Uniquely artistic, designed through community input and passion, reflecting the richness of its diverse communities, both in building design and artistic expression. Spirited and lively, opened and spacious to foster a vibrant social hub, it will encourage collective, harmonious, and sharing attitudes. Efficient, well-planned, and organized to maximize the use of the community amenity. So now moving into the needs benefit assessment and community engagement phase. Community engagement was conducted during the needs benefit assessment to identify the public's concerns and desires related to a community aquatic center. The public was engaged at 2 open houses held at Port Alberni and Cherry Creek, and an online survey with a project website, as well as social media. There was a great level of participation in the survey with 1,250 respondents. Pardon me. So who did we hear from? In the survey, we heard from a number of different communities within the ACRD. The largest group was from the city of Port Alberni, but other communities were well represented also. And we provided survey results by area within the appendix of technical memo 2 for reference, and we'll go over a few of the outcomes of the survey by area. So questions regarding the community's use of the existing Echo Aquatic Center were included in both the survey and open house to identify public perceptions of what works and what does not work in the existing facility as learnings that can be applied to the design of a new facility. So what did the public have to say about what works at Echo? We heard that there are a number of existing amenities that are well used, including the fitness space, that the current location is favorable to many, and that the current cost is reasonable. So this is just showing a little bit of detail about, So if we look at popular amenities, the top amenities that people noted as frequently include an emphasis on the use of the main leisure and lap tanks. So you can see leisure pool, lap pool, whirlpool, hot tub, followed by hot tub, sauna, top pool, spectating, and water slide. This information tells us that the existing leisure amenities appear to be well used at Echo. And what did the public have to say about what does not work at Echo? We heard limited operating hours and staffing levels, lack of leisure pool capacity. The pool is outdated and lacks fun, modern amenities. Not enough access to swimming lessons, and pool temperature issues were all identified as issues keeping people from using the pool. So this is an example question from the survey used to identify what was not working at Echo. So this level of information is included within the report. So here we can see the number of respondents noting limited operating hours and staffing levels, lack of leisure pool space, and so on. An indicator that the existing pool is not entirely meeting the needs of the community is the number of people who said they periodically travel to a different community to use their facility instead of Echo. The majority of respondents, 70%, said yes, they had. And the most common reasons when asked why was that Echo is outdated, lacks fun, modern amenities, and is not open enough. The other facilities were noted as being much nicer, open more hours, and providing a better overall user experience. Now, if we look at these results of the same question by area, we see a lot of consistency, with the majority of community members indicating that they do periodically travel outside of the community to use a pool and find a better aquatic experience. So we also included questions about a new aquatic center and what kind of feedback did we receive when we asked those questions. Both the survey and the open house included questions intended to gauge the levels of support and opposition for a new aquatic facility within the community and understand why and why not that support existed. Engagement at both the open house and public surveys indicated high levels of community support for the possibility of an aquatic facility. Over 88% of survey respondents said yes, they're interested in the possibility. Looking at these results up to the same question by area again, we see a lot of consistency, with the majority of respondents in each community indicating they're interested in a new facility. There's only a 5% overall difference in the number of people who selected yes between all communities, with 90% in Port Alberni and 85% in Sprout Lake.
Just to interrupt you, John, I'm wondering if we could have a quick motion to extend the presentation. Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director Haggard. All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Please continue, John.
Thank you. Apologies for that, everyone. I'll try and keep the pace up here. So the most common reasons people answered yes, they were interested was a perception that the existing facility no longer meets the needs of the community because it's outdated, unreliable, and lacks elements of fun and excitement. And the most common reason people answered no was generally related to cost and concerns that the project will be unaffordable for the communities within the Alberni Valley. So questions regarding the importance of various aquatic amenities and activities was included to identify community preferences for what could be included in a potential new facility. And when we asked what aquatic activities they valued, we heard swim for fun and swim for exercise as the most frequently noted, emphasizing the importance of the leisure and lap tanks. We also asked the community to rank the importance of these 6 aquatic activities, and we heard the focus to be on leisure and recreational swimming, skill development, and personal and group fitness in the top 3 spots. And this is consistent feedback that we've heard throughout the engagement.
John, before you continue, can you go back to one more right there?
I'm sorry, right there.
Are these, is when people are voting for these, can they pick as many as they want?
They can in some questions, yes. So in this question, they can choose all that apply. And then in a ranking question, they have to categorize them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes. So to understand what elements of an aquatic center location are most important to the community, we asked for feedback on several location criteria. We heard the 4 most important location criteria are the importance of being close to existing recreational amenities, being accessible by public transit and close to schools or education facilities, and accessible by car. These were all ranked as the most important items. And then if we look at these results for the same question by area again, we see that the same 4 criteria are consistently within the top 4 positions. There are a few that have shuffled in terms of the importance of public transit and accessible by car. So as part of the engagement process, the community was also asked what kind of aquatic activities would be the most important to include, non-aquatic activities would be the most important to include in a new facility if non-aquatic spaces were to be included. And we're working with the advisory committee and working group to determine the importance of including spaces for non-aquatic activities within the next round of public engagement. for this particular facility, but I'll just touch on this quickly here in the interest of time. There's much more detail for non-aquatic recreation spaces included within technical memo number 2. So we heard the focus of priorities for non-aquatic spaces from the public to be kid-friendly play spaces, fun sports spaces, and spaces for group activities being in the top positions. So based on the results of the engagement completed so far, we've made several recommendations for the programming of a new facility. The recommendations will be reviewed by the advisory committee before being presented back to the community in the next round of public engagement. So the emerging facility recommendations, a leisure pool with a focus on fun, spray features, and a lazy river, lessons for younger children. A separate leisure pool tank would support the strong demand for child and family-friendly leisure and fun-focused activities that have been expressed as a priority in by the community. A lap pool, desire for lap swimming, skill development, group fitness activities such as aquafit and competitive swimming indicate support for a separate 6-lane 25-meter lap tank. Consideration should be given to an 8-lane pool during the next round of community engagement. Public engagement also indicates that the existing hot tub at Echo is well used, with many people expressing a desire for more hot tub space, including a single larger hot tub in a new facility would support these community priorities. Sauna and steam rooms. Engagement also indicates the existing saunas are popular at Echo, and that the health benefits, rehabilitation, and therapy are important components of a new facility. Universal change rooms are we recommend that a new facility should include a majority of universal family change rooms, spaces with smaller, separate male and female change facilities. Accessibility, the facility should be built to include best practices for accessibility, increase openness and indoor-outdoor connection. The existing Echo pool has several interior spaces that are visually disconnected from one another. It's recommended that a new facility includes more open interior spaces that can be more easily monitored for increased safety and feelings of connection. For fitness space, we heard that the existing fitness studio is a well-used space, but many expressed a desire for the space to be larger with better equipment. A new facility should consider incorporating a larger fitness space in response to this priority and to capture revenue opportunities. A wet multi-purpose room that could be used for activities such as birthday parties and skill development, lifeguard training, etc., would support the feedback received for more fun kid and family activities and skill development. Sustainability, the facility should be designed to industry and environmental best practices as outlined in the project's guiding principles. And other non-aquatic recreation spaces, public feedback shows that there is some interest for including other non-aquatic recreation spaces, such as space for kids to play and spaces where people can play sports for fun. In the next phase of the project, consideration should be given for including spaces to meet these needs, such as potential indoor or outdoor playgrounds, multi-purpose rooms, or basketball courts. What we've heard from the working group and advisory committee so far is that the focus should be on the aquatics in this instance, but we'll continue working with them to clarify non-aquatic spaces within the next round of public engagement. So last slide, thank you. For next steps, in the next stage of the project, we'll refine these program recommendations with the advisory committee and prepare a set of aquatic program elements that will be presented to the public in a second survey this fall. In the survey, community members will be able to select the elements of a new facility that are most important to them and receive real-time feedback on the estimated financial impact per household. The intention of the survey is to determine the community's preferred option for the elements within a new aquatic facility by identifying the highest level of consensus amongst ACRD community members. The outcomes from these next stages will be captured in technical memo number 3 and the final report, which can be used by elected officials to guide the next steps for the ACRD's aquatic services. Thank you.
Great. And if you could stop sharing, then I'll be able to see the rest of the folks. Okay, we can open it up for comments or questions. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Director McClellan, please go ahead.
Yeah, two questions. One, when you were doing the surveys, did you find
in terms of the overall level of support, yes, there was a very high level of support amongst amongst a survey that was well represented. Now, that being said, the next round of public engagement will include financial implications of a new aquatic facility. And so we'll be able to then gauge again if that support level has changed. We did not conduct an extensive review of the existing facility, although I believe that was conducted in the 2011 study.
I think we might have a supplemental, John. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, in terms of taking a look to see whether or not we renovate the existing, that's out of scope for HCMA. Discussions from the previous board going all the way back in 2011 and all the way up to 2021. There was consensus that we were better off looking at a full replacement rather than a renovation. So in the work that they're doing, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at a renovation.
All right, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Dr. McClellan, go ahead.
Yeah, just I guess the reason for the first question is that when we got our multiplex, there was a group of people that worked like crazy around town telling us how much we needed it. And we voted maybe two or three times, and I voted yes every time, incidentally. Some people aren't happy with me for that, I guess, and we got it, and it's a good facility. But I don't see or hear a champion, if you would, for this. And I think that's something we're probably going to need in the future, near future.
Thank you, Director McClellan. I think that's a very good point. Maybe something we scope in after a few sessions. Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I do sit on this committee and would like to say thanks for the work that you've done so far. I have had questions from my community regarding the 2011 study that was done by the city, and they want to know if you've used any of that information in the new study. Thanks.
I think that one of the realizations moving forward with this feasibility study was that feasibility study, it's been a while since it was done, and we wanted a fresh start. So for all of the engagement, we're starting fresh to capture new information.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions or follow-up? Seeing none, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think that brings us into item 6, which is correspondence for action. So this is 6A, which is a request for approval of the terms of reference and appointment of an elected representative to the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Committee on Solid Waste and Circular Economy. So we do have a sample recommendation here. We were wondering if anybody was particularly interested in this committee.
I had the fortune to talk to staff about this in terms of, I had a couple questions and it may be relevant for the rest of the board in terms of the value of participating in this. The terms of reference could be certainly ratified, but the question of the value of what participation of the ACRD on this particular, and it was indicated to me that there would be value in a few different aspects. So after that conversation, I said that if there was no other director that was interested, I could step up to the plate. It was also in the ask was for an alternate as well as an appointed director.
Incidentally, on that, I have had conversations with some champions of circular economy, one of which is, I think, Director Ben Gesselbrecht of Nanaimo. He's very much a a champion for that and got me interested enough that I would be willing to be an alternate, perhaps not the primary. However, I got there first.
Yeah, okay, I would take that on as if you could be the alternate.
What do you think, Director Cote?
I'd like to make that motion.
I was actually going to look to Director Cote as well to see if she was interested, but since you're making the motion, I'll see what you say.
Do we have a second there? Thank you, Director Haggard. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? And motion carried. Thank you. No, I'll make sure I'm on the mailing list. It's interesting stuff to me. Okay. All right, that brings us to item 7, which is correspondence for information. There's only 2 of them, one of which is just a wildfire response from Barrier, as well as something from INEO in regards to recycling pilot project. Would anyone like to pull anything out? If not, we could have a motion just to receive. Dr. Haggard, go ahead.
I was wondering if we could pull out the letter from INEO and refer that to staff for more information if they think this is a feasible opportunity for the board to look at. If we want to take this project on, or if it's doable for us, if we have the capacity, I think it's something that we should be investigating.
Jenny, I see that your video is on. Would you like to speak to this? Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, we have been working with INEO, obviously, with the mattress recycling pilot project, and we're very well aware of this RV recycling initiative, which is excellent because they are problematic. One of the small things that we are going to be doing is at the AVB committee, we brought forward a list of changes that we're going to be making to the landfill tipping fees. One of them is increasing the minimum fee to $500 for RVs, which we actually think will help a lot in just encouraging people to recycle if there is a recycling option available. And so I think what we'd like to do is continue to work with INEO because we do have a good working relationship with them. They obviously run Third Avenue Depot, and we'll see how it goes and as the project unfolds. And then if we do look at making any financial supports or whatever partnership, that we will bring a report to the board at that time, but that might not be for a number of months. That is okay with the board.
That sounds perfect.
Great, thank you. Director Cote.
Thank you. Interested in how this would work if INEO was actually going to provide a service to take apart an RV and recycle. Would they receive the $500, or how would that work? And I just want to say also that I've had a recent conversation with Mosaic, and they said that they did a cleanup and removed a few RVs from their property. So I know that that is happening, and they have taken on the cost for that as well. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Through the chair, excellent questions. So if I have an RV and it's in total disrepair and I need to get rid of it, I will take it to the landfill and then I pay the tipping fees. But if I was aware that there was a private company like INEO that was willing to recycle it, I would then go to them and say, well, it's going to cost me $2,000 to put it in the landfill, and then they're just going to landfill it. What will it cost for you to recycle it? The challenge is right now, I think that because this is a pilot, they're working out what those fees are. And so they're trying to figure out by running it through a few RVs through the recycling process. It's very labor intensive. So they're trying to see what it will cost them and what their fees will be when they do establish it. So the ACRD would be very much just telling people that this recycling opportunity exists and that they can then choose to go have it recycled. So we wouldn't be looking at banning yet, unless like we do for mattresses, once there is an established diversion stream that works and is more cost effective than landfilling, we could look at banning it. I hope that answers the questions.
There we go. I think it does. Double clicked twice. Okay, are there any other comments or questions or any other items? Seeing none, could we have a motion to receive the correspondence or information? Thank you, Director Steer, seconded by Director Sparrow. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 8A. Before we get to either Jenny or Michael, I'm wondering if Director Sparrow would like to say anything first or hear the report first.
Thank you. I'd like to actually make a few comments on it before we get into the motion, if I could.
Okay, so can we have the introduction of the report first, and then before we get to yeah, you'll be the first speaker after that.
Great.
Okay, cool. I'm wondering, Jenny, do you want to take this, or Michael? I think you prepped. Please go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, I'll provide a quick update on this report in front of the board today, and a quick update on what's happened since the last time the board's seen this file. So I'm sure everybody or many people here are aware of Hole in the Wall as a location and as an attraction, but specifically the public, when accessing Hole in the Wall, they generally access it through Highway 4 on the road right away. There's a parking on the shoulder, or they park at the Coombs Country Candy and then kind of jaywalk across the highway at a bit of a blind corner. From there, they go on to a trail on private forestry land owned by Mosaic and do about a 15-minute walk to the Hole in the Wall attraction. And popularity for this attraction has grown immensely over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think most people are under the impression that it's a public park or public access, public trail, when in actuality it's in private forestry land. And it's, using Mosaic's term, unsanctioned use, but not enforced. So that's not a big concern for them. The big concern is the safety aspects on Highway 4 and the parking there. So the ACRD, we don't own any land tenure or assets associated with Hole in the Wall. But, with the concern with the public safety, MLA Josie Osborne's office had organized a meeting with community interested groups last year around this time. And it was kind of an open table meeting when everybody discussed, issues, potential solutions and whatnot. And I think that there's good group consensus there that, some action should be taken to address the public safety concerns. But there weren't really firm next steps established at that meeting. So then we took a staff report to the ACRD board here to provide an overview of that meeting. And the direction from the board at that time was that the ACRD should host the next meeting more at a staff level with impacted landowners. So the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and Mosaic. That meeting was hosted in July of this year. And we went over kind of some operational issues where everybody is from an organizational standpoint, where their stance was. Both Mosaic and the Ministry of Transportation, supported working within a group to establish a better public access or safe public access. But they also both weren't interested in leading a project to create that. And they supported the ACRD taking a lead in that type of project. So that's kind of got us to where we are today, where we have the report in front of you with a couple of different recommendations. One recommendation is to defer the ACRD taking a leadership role. And another one would be for us to step up and create a feasibility study to see what taking a leadership role in the development of Hole in the Wall would be. So happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Director Sparrow?
Thank you for that. So I go to Cherry Creek quite a bit, and I walk in this area from the candy store, and the people park there all the time to go to the Hole in the Wall. And quite often they have an app on their phone, and they're looking at the app and they're saying, "Where's the hole in the wall?" Right, which is across the highway, which is obviously a bad situation, and they go that way. And I know the report says we should sort of defer it and close it off, but I think it's going to help because the apps on the phones are still there, and they're still going to try and find a way to get there as they do within the Grove. When they have light all blocked up, they still find ways of walking around. There is a trail from the highway to the Hole in the Wall, but there's also a trail from the Hole in the Wall to Sherwood's Pit, which is the other side. It's a longer trail, and it's not a very good trail, but there's a trail there. Have we ever explored looking at that as an option, going from the Sherwood pit side and looking, we can get something that done there and walking towards the hole in the wall and get away from the highway. And that would resolve this issue here where it says, a joint effort to find a solution to the public safety risk and the current access holes.
Michael, do you want to take that?
I'd say at both meetings, actually, we discussed options, and the Sherwood's pit option was one of the items discussed, and it is a potential solution, but it would take, a champion, and, both the Ministry of Transportation and Mosaic, have said that they're not going to be the champion. So if the ACRD would like to take on that role, that's an option for us to establish, hopefully today. And that would be involved in, a feasibility study and where it would live and how it would live on past that.
Do you want to follow up, Dr. Sparrow?
Sure. So as you look at the area there where the pit is, actually it's down by the water. It's not good right now. It's a pit, but there is potential there to actually make it a better place and put some big tables and make a long-term thing out of it. But it would be expensive. So I'd be interested to see what the implications were to do that, and if it's worthwhile to do it or just not do it at all. Because right now, what we're going to do is try to close off the area. I don't think it's going to work very well. People will still cross the highway, which is dangerous. So if we can make it safer reasonably, then I think we should look at that option.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Cote.
Thank you. Would this be looking at possibly turning that into a regional park? Is there an option for that?
Through the feasibility study, if that direction is chosen, it would need to live in a service if the ACRD is going to take a management or land tenure role. So we would look at, a couple natural locations for it would be under regional parks or Cherry Creek Parks, Community Park Service, or it could have its own service created. At that point, when the decision is time to be made, it would go along with the outcome of the feasibility study and brought back towards the board.
So at this point, do we have a service that we could actually direct it to, like the regional parks? We don't have a committee that could take that on, or how would we move this forward?
If we were to look into taking on this service, I think it would be the optional recommendation there to budget a feasibility study in 2024 under general government. And then that feasibility study would look at, where the service would live.
Thank you. Terry might have an answer. Before we get to Director McClellan, we'll have Terry. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. So no, we do not have authority. We don't have jurisdiction over this trail. It's not been designated. So until we have some sort of legal authority, whether that's a license of occupation from Mosaic or some sort of legal document that says it's ours, we can't even designate it into a park. That is why we're proposing the feasibility study, because we would have to figure out what existing assets we would potentially want to take over. What would the governance model look like? Would you want to put it into regional parks? Would you want to put it into Cherry Creek Parks? Would you want to create some sub-regional park service that you put it into? And as part of that, we could look at what are the potential future costs too. But yeah, we don't have the authority because we don't have jurisdiction over the area to actually place it into a service without doing that feasibility study. And then we would have to get through an agreement with Mosaic to get legal authority over it.
Director McClellan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Director Sparrow, it was quite accurate that this is on an app that Google, or maybe one or two of them, they follow the GPS and they're driving down the highway like this. Oh, I got to turn. And they turn directly into it without looking. And yet, so far, no one's really died at it or had a real bad accident. But I was there a couple of times when several were coming in at me, and I thought, well, I'll just sit still and see who hits me first. But it didn't happen. But that's what's happened. It's there. They get down to where I go, down to the Black Powder Club up at the top gate there, and they say, well, how do I get there? Well, you go down there, and you can walk for 40 minutes, or you go down the other way and walk for 10. And seemingly the younger ones run and go for the 10-minute walk, but that's the problem because it's down by the candy store. And if there's no room on the off side of the highway, they got to walk across the highway. So it is not safe. I don't think, I just picturing trying to make it into a park gives me a few willies here, because that's going to be a real fun time, especially with the different properties. There's a Mosaic or Island Timber, whatever owns some of it. Some of it's fee simple to the city, and there's some other things stuck in there. And also there's a fire hazard. There is a resident there who has on occasion phoned me and said, I've been down to that hole in the wall again, and there's another fire. I just put it out, and people are mad at me because I crossed the road, and on and on and on. But nonetheless, he does go down when he sees the smoke and puts them out. So I haven't heard any complaints from him in the last several months when this was real dry. So maybe people actually didn't like one this year. But I think it's some things we have to consider. I don't know, probably the best way is to get it taken off the GPS or something, because people come thinking it's like the hole in the wall they read on the Westerns when they were young. There's this hole in the wall in the river down in Arkansas or somewhere, and they had crooks in it or something. So they think that's a similar thing. They don't understand it's just something we used to use to get water. Now it's going away, and it won't be there forever. It's not going to stay.
Thank you for that. It really speaks to the awkwardness of the private managed forest lands aspect of this. So with that, we'll go to Director Siga. Please go ahead.
Thank you. It seems to me that the concern is not about how to access it. It's the safety issue. And so it becomes a liability. And currently, I would imagine the traffic piece of that would be a Ministry of Transportation accountability piece. And the other piece would be Mosaic for not creating the barriers to potential people that they apparently don't want visiting. On the other hand, I have been to the hole in the wall. I think it's an asset. And currently ACRD has no liability in this. So I think it behooves Mosaic and the Ministry of Transportation to come up with some kind of plan.
Thank you. Director Haggard.
Thank you, Chair Jack. There's many different issues regarding hole in the wall, and issues are extremely complex. It is not just one party you're dealing with a lot of parties. And I think the cost to develop this into a regional park or a trail is going to be extremely cost prohibitive. And I just don't think this is something that we have the capacity or that we want to take on at this time. So I just don't think we should be putting this into our priority list as even something to work on. I think we should just say, close it down. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for that. Any further comment? All right. Seeing none. Are there any other comments or motions? We do have the original motion that does basically that. Director Sparrow, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make the motion at the bottom of the list for the options.
Okay, I don't have the documents up in front of me, so you have to read it off.
I'll make a motion, see how it goes.
Yeah, read it. Yeah.
That the Alberni Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to lead a hole in the wall feasibility study and add it to the general government budget and the work plan for the 2024 financial plan.
Okay, thank you. Director Roth, go ahead. Are you seconding?
Yeah, second the motion.
All right, comments? Director Cote?
Thank you. I know that there's a number of strategic plan initiatives that are already scheduled for 2024. And I'm just wondering if the staff has the capacity to actually do that.
Daniel, go ahead.
Your timing is awesome. We are going to bring back the draft strategic plan that we went through in May and introduce that for consideration to the board at the end of this month in September with a recommendation, just, spoiler alert, that we move it to a committee of the whole for larger discussion and put it in the context of the budget. So if we're going to add something, now's the time. And then we can weigh that in the balance of everything when we work through the 2024 budget to see where everything fits. It's been a summer with a lot of twists and turns, as we all know. And so that's why we're bringing back the strategic plan in that format, because a lot has changed since May.
Okay, so how would we achieve that? Would that be let this motion stand, or would we table the motion to like next month after a committee of the whole? How would that look?
I would let this motion stand, and what we'll do is I'll add it to the report as a motion for consideration with the strategic plan to see where it all connects, and then when we get into the budget, that's when we'll get into the triage of which feasibilities we choose to do in 2024 or 2025. We'll start doing the triage of time versus expenses at that point.
Okay, so there will be time to weigh those in that context.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Cote?
I was just going to say that Great Central is waiting to be addressed in through the strategic plan, and I know that there's a number of initiatives that are on there already, and that's why I was asking about staff capacity, because I don't want to see plan be altered to take something else on and bump something else out. That's been waiting for years. Thanks.
Okay, so I do think there's time to have that conversation with the answers that you're asking for. Yes, pretty much.
I believe there will be, and I think this is why we wanted to bring everything to a committee of the whole format, is that, there's a lot of things, and as they come up, you're correct, we don't have the capacity to do everything. And so I think it's easier for the board to weigh everything when they see everything in the cumulative list, and the committee of the whole would be a good opportunity to do that. And it's just on at the beginning of our budget process, so it would allow us then to weigh that and then come back to the board with the draft budget that reflects the revised priorities.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You're making me think about other things right now, and it's kind of ties into this, but would we also be looking at committee formation at that time?
I would say yes, and you'll see in the report on the 27th that I'll be asking the board simply to receive what was done in May and to give thought to the conversations that they've had since May. We have a number of new elected officials as well. We've had a lot of discussions over the summer, sat at a lot of different tables. And so what we see in the strategic plan are broad themes that don't yet have specific objectives. So it could be that some of the things we're talking about for 2024 fit in the new plan. They're just an objective within it. And it could be that it's something completely new. And then how we address that with committees and whatnot is part of that discussion, and part of staff then coming back and saying, we either do or don't have the capacity, or we could address it through consultant, or et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none. So with that, this is a promise to have this conversation with the context of all the information that's been asked for, but we will address this in the way that was asked by Dr. Sparrow and seconded by Dr. Roth, as long as we have a vote. So all in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Jack, did you want to say something first? Sorry.
No, I
Okay, thank you. He said no. Okay, so that brings us to the next agenda item, which is a request for decision regarding the Long Beach Airport Hahosi Memorandum of Understanding. Thank you. Please go ahead, Jenny.
Chair. So we've been working on this memorandum of understanding for a quite a while now, since 2022. We've had a number of staff meetings, and we have drafted up a memorandum of understanding that will stand for 3 years. Within that, we are looking to work with Taloquiet First Nation on the long-term planning at the Long Beach Airport for basically planning and development, as well as lease applications, long and short term, looking at communication and territory recognition, and working on the development of a longer term protocol agreement. This is an excellent initiative that has received support from the West Coast Committee earlier this year. And then late August, our CAO and our new airport project planner went and presented this to the Taloquiet First Nation Chief and Council. It was very well received. There's strong support to build this very fundamental working relationship between our two organizations. So we're looking for board support to authorize the CAO to enter into the MOU. And then we will be looking to get final authorization for sign off from the Taloquiet First Nation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Director Steer, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a comment, and mostly I'm very excited about this, and I think it's the significance of this government-to-government collaboration and cooperation should not be underestimated. And I'm particularly excited about in this MOU around the principles of cooperation, and I will attempt the pronunciations of Isak, Ulafak, and Hisuakes. Sawak. I just took language lessons on Monday, so this is the first attempt at that. And the respect and the taking care of, and everything is one. And these foundational principles provide, I believe, a model framework for all government-to-government MOUs in our region, and I would say in the province, to be honest. And so I really want a big thank you to staff on this one. And speaking with Jenny, particular shout out to our CIO and the tremendous amount of work, and to the staff and to the elected officials at TFN as well. I think this is an incredible accomplishment and highly, highly supported.
Would you like to make the motion?
I would love to make the motion.
Okay, excellent. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Haggard. Any further comments? Seeing none, I would echo that sentiment about the 3 core values. I said as much yesterday as well, so it's really great. Okay, seeing no more comments, I'll say all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so that brings us to item 8C, which is the request for decision regarding aquatics facility outreach, which was mentioned during the presentation, but go ahead.
Thank you. I'll start with that one, and then if we get into the details of what's at the tail end of that report, I'll hand it over to Terry to speak to you greater details on the financials. So we're gearing up for the final round of outreach with HCMA this fall, as John had indicated in his presentation, and this is probably the most challenging part of the discussion, because we're going to be talking about different options, the costs, and the breakdown to what that cost would be per household, per community. We've taken a look at the work that was done by previous boards and previous staff in the past, and the discussions around some of the apportionment models that were not going to be accepted as just like no-go areas. So navigating that was quite important, and also trying to find a financial model or apportionment model that we could use consistently for the model that would give all residents in the Alberni Valley a good indication, with a plus or minus, but a good indication of how much it would cost for their average household for a particular model. Where the model is the model that we're developing is using both the land and improvements and population, so it's a mix 50-50. The report breaks down the different options that we considered. They are certainly not the only options, but they're certainly the most accessible options that are there. And the bottom line is we had to use something that we felt would give it an equitable representation across the board. And this is what we landed on. So we wanted to present that to the board so you understand that. But we also understand that there's a tremendous amount of discussion when it comes to these apportionment models. And they're discussions that are worthy of having. So even though this discussion right now is about aquatics. The reality is that when we talk about regional parks, and we talk about any regional services or sub-regional services, we're going to be in the same position of talking about which apportionment model is likely going to be the most equitable. And we're quite certain that there's no perfect formula. If there was, the province would likely be recommending that. But we need, the only way we're going to crack that nut is by having the discussion. So for the purposes of the survey, we're doing the 50-50. For the purposes of what comes next, we want to start the discussion with the board in November. And we want to start talking about what elements matter, which don't, which are really no-goes and why. So we can start putting ourselves in a position, whether it be for aquatics, if that continues to referendum, or whether it be some other service, that we're at least starting that conversation, a tough conversation around money and what is fair or seem to be fair, that we're starting that as early as possible. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were flagging that element. You'll notice that we're not making a recommendation that the board make the decision. But we're also making, not make the decision today, sorry, but we're also flagging that we felt this part was beyond the reach of our advisory committee, that it really wasn't a fair position to put the advisory committee to say, well, we believe we should look at this apportion model. So staff made that decision. We made it in collaboration with HCMA, looking at all these other models that are out there. We ran numbers to try and see what was more middle of the road. And we want to be very clear with the board that there are a lot of different ways that we can assemble this. But this certainly allowed us to paint the best possible picture, or most realistic picture for all residents in the valley prior to a more detailed discussion. Beyond that, I'll flag the technical memo 1 and 2. I feel we're really strong representations of the community. 1,250 surveys is a significant amount of surveys coming back to us. And what we hope to do is build on that number when we start talking about the tough elements of money and design. None of this commits anyone to anything. It's just talking hypothetical. And that's very important that we remember that as we're having these discussions. We will use this discussion, this information, as a platform for moving forward, but it is not by any means a final decision.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? Dr. Haggard and then Dr. McClellan.
Thank you, Chair Jack. Daniel, the 50-50 split that you put in here, that's just for capital costs. We'll be using the same 50-50 for operational cost as well.
So yeah, so right now what we're looking at is the model will make assumptions based on size, on the amount of staff. So there'll be a flat operational cost that follows, and we're assuming the total cost of borrowing. So we know that there'll be revenue coming in at the door. We know that there may be grants or not grants. There's a lot in there. So what we're saying is, based on what we borrow, that overall cost, and based on operational costs added on to that, this is what we're looking at. It was simply for demonstrative purposes. As an example that we used what we demonstrated here, it's like, okay, per million, this is what it would look like on a household. Depending on what the public plays with, and it's a very interactive online platform for the outreach, people will be able to add things like a big slide or a wave pool, and as they do that, they'll be able to see, oh, this is now what the value of the overall project is, and this is what it means for my household. So yeah, we have to make some assumptions in there, and we do plan on asking questions that test the upper threshold. So if you are a household and you say, you know what, I'm not willing to spend more than $250 a year for this aquatic center, it helps us understand, because if we go it alone, that $250 is only going to go so far. If we get a 50% grant, that $250 obviously is worth a lot more. And so we're going to want to ask residents to talk about what is their upper threshold based on what they value and see here. And it's important to understand the impact to you as a resident. And it's also important that we demonstrate, as people see it per household cost. Penny may be looking at this saying, why am I paying more than Port Alberni per household? And it's tough to adjust all that. And that's why we like showing the overall cost. So there's no formula where Port Alberni is paying less. There's simply a greater population and more households. So even if it's lower per household, it's more overall. The other thing that we haven't demonstrated is if Port Alberni were to go at this alone, how much per household? And we do intend on showing that with greater clarity as we move forward so that people can understand if I'm not part of this. We want to be able to share with Port Alberni that if Port Alberni were in a position to have to make the choice of am I going to enroll or not, they also have a useful survey that gives them that indication of what that would look like. And of course, if we weren't paying through a service model, we would have another difficult conversation of how much it would cost at the door if you're not part of that overall model. So we're entering a tough final quarter of the year as we talk money.
Great, thank you. I have Director McClellan and then Cote next, and then Steer. Please go ahead, Director McClellan.
Yeah, you mentioned that you didn't want to use the committee to make some of this decision. Is the committee still functioning?
The committee is still functioning, and we have an October meeting coming up where we're going to review the upcoming survey. They will provide us with some guidance on the survey, and then we will be rolling it out publicly.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked about the physical condition to the consultant was that Director Boyko asked me to, and I just got an email from him this morning. So maybe you should have that information available from what was done in previous studies, and to the directors pick out any new ones who maybe weren't around in 2011 on the board or in other places. So I think that would be good. And the committee, I think, would have to be if they don't get on board, and it has to be a champion. I really think that's what's needed. And if it doesn't happen, well, I guess it doesn't happen. But the request for decision here is just to receive those two memos. Is that? Well, it's not much decision. I guess that's information. But anyway, just curious for my information, how much is the consultant costing us?
The overall facility, like this budget that we have with this consultant to do the work is $92,000.
Okay, but it's not going to go over that, right?
No, it's a fixed contract. Where if we're going to go over, it's with additional work in 2024, depending on what we see after HCMA is done. So this outreach work is a fixed contract with HCMA. We intend to use that work to make decisions moving forward. If that brings us to something like, we want to do more outreach with the community to talk about the possibility of bringing it to a referendum and an overall vote, then that would fall outside of that contract, and we need a different budget for that.
Means we would decide at that point as a board. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Directors Cote and then Steer. Did I miss anybody? No? Okay, Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for this report. And I'm just, I am receiving emails from residents of Sprout Lake regarding moving forward with this. I know that the information from the study does show that there's people interested in wanting to move this forward, but there's also people that are making comments regarding the amount of taxes that we've already put into the conceptual design and figuring this out. So people are getting aware of what is being proposed here. So because this is actually being put forward, the model is being chosen by staff and being put forward as a 50-50, does that cover both the service and the capital costs, or is it just the capital costs? I have a further question about the numbers that have been provided in this report on jurisdictions. So I looked up the amount of the population, and 2,454 is the newest number that I couldn't find it on the Canada Census, whatever. So I'm not sure where that number comes from, but I did see that the Tishat First Nation, there's 452 members in their population. So is that it added into this? Because different jurisdictions. So just wondering how the calculations came about, and all the numbers are different. So I was trying to figure that out. And the average household, in my opinion, the assessment is very low, in my opinion. Thanks.
I will let Terry speak to assessed values and whatnot, but before we do that, I think one of the questions about O&M and capital costs, we do intend on putting them together. It's very hard to split apart. And what we're doing is, and it's for discussion purposes, right? So again, this is for the purposes of the survey to the community. If we make it too complex, people start thinking, well, I thought it was this amount and then I saw this. So what we want to make it is summarize as one number, and we want to make that the highest possible number given what's there. So putting in operations with capital cost allows people to see one number, because when you're taxed, you're going to pay that one big number. Now, when we get to apportionment, and again, like this is where the debate later on is so important, because we know here at this table that paying at the door is going to offset some of those costs. We know that we can split capital costs out as we did with the multiplex and look at operations differently. And those are all tools that are still available to us, and we will work through that as we talk about a model. But for the purposes of the survey, we felt it was very important that the public have a simple and clear link to a facility of this size will likely be this amount to operate, so it's all blended in, and will likely cost you this amount. And so we're trying to create that clear link.
Can I just ask a question about that? So, so going forward, absolutely, you can put one number at the end, but I want to see those two numbers.
You will absolutely see two numbers, especially when we dive in. Like, this table is going to dive into the weeds a lot deeper than the general public, because it's harder to bring the public for that level. But we don't want the public to see, $100 and us come back 2 years later after a referendum with 350, right? They're like, where did that come from? So we're trying to make sure that we're showing everything, and it's sort of a reverse sales pitch, because what ends up happening is people we want to be conservative. So we're hoping that if we were to proceed, people would see that number or less, not that number or higher. But it's not a perfect science, because at the end of the day, the apportionment model is going to change what people see, as you know.
Thank you. So part of this is like option 5 is a parcel tax. How do you put the service cost into a parcel tax?
I will let Terry go into that and the assessment, because thank you, Terry.
Yeah, for sure. So population numbers includes the shot for your area, because as per electoral area, they are considered part of your population in terms of how the province calculates it. So non-treaty nations are added into the electoral area that the population goes into. Treaty nations are like municipalities, so they're listed separately. So we just use the provincial numbers that are developed by census by the federal government, but through the provincial lens, I guess you would call it. The average house value or residential value is from BC assessment. So I guess must remember vacant land, small lots. We are just trying to be consistent with how we measure that from year to year. So I don't disagree. There's a whole lot of houses out there that are more than that, but we're just going off the information that we can gather, and that is the number that comes out of the BC assessment information. Apportionment, I think we will be discussing this for a long time. I think it's going to be hard, this service in particular, it's going to be hard to come up with a model that everyone agrees with. And I think that we've tried to kind of take that discussion out of the public at this point, because if we try to build it into the survey, I think you're going to lose people's interest in the survey, because it's going to become too complicated. They're just not going to finish it. So just trying to pick a model. We went back on the discussion that happened in 2019 and again in 2021. And it was kind of like parcel tax only is not an option. land improvements only is not an option based on just the feedback of the study at the time. So we just try to pick something that put us in the middle. It is the apportionment model that we used for the West Coast Transit Service. And as we're starting to develop or talk about service agreements with non-treaty nations such as Tulukwit, it's actually quite easy because we have that population factor already built in there. It's building us a mechanism to start those discussions with the other non-treaty nations. So I think that, again, we'll have a big discussion regarding that at the AVB in November. We could go pages and pages of options, like basically as long as it's a consistent measure that we can apply across the board over time, the province will likely approve it. So there's gonna be a lot more discussion, but I think that we've tossed this around a lot of staff, and we think this is a good approach to take from a survey point of view, because it will help us gauge some of that community interest or lack of interest.
Thank you for that. I think it's important to note that the model that's been selected, it seems to be just a base model for us to talk about numbers and all be on the same page. The actual apportionment will be discussed ad nauseum in the future, I think. So with that in mind, we'll go to Director Steer. Thank you.
I don't want to add to the ad nauseum, but my question did center around apportionment models. And so I'll leave it at that. I think the information that will be coming forward in November and looking at the number of different models out there. And it's been a concern, of course, on the West Coast in terms of how we do that in transit, as Terry pointed out, was one of those where we use the 50-50 and curious as to see what other potential models are out there. And I hate to use the word fairness, but it is the one word that comes up with my constituents on the West Coast and how we go about doing that. So I'll leave it there.
This is giving me NTC and mono flashbacks. We do 2/3, 1/3. That's what we do, population and flat. Anyway, with that in mind, we do have a recommendation to receive the reports. That's all it is at the moment. So do you have a motion to do so? Thank you, Director Steer. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Sparrow. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us into item D, which is a request for decision regarding local assistance for the fire commissioner reappointments. Charlie, please go ahead.
Yes, LAFCs are appointed for a 3-year term, and we have several that are expired or expiring shortly, and we were asked the board to endorse their reappointment as LAFCs. And if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Does anyone have any comments or questions or motions? Director Sparrow, go ahead.
So they're a 3-year appointment. I know we're not liable for the LAFCs because they're through the provincial branch, but hopefully they'll be trained to NFPA 1033 when they're done. Was in fire investigation. It's a really good course. One of my fun courses I ever had. So yeah, let them know that it's not a drab course like most of them are. It's actually a hands-on investigation course, and you have lots of fun. So hopefully that in the future will happen, and have fun with it. Thank you.
Great. Any further comments or questions? Director Cote, go ahead.
I'd just like to make the recommendation that the Alberni Quaycott Regional District Board of Directors request the Office of the Fire Commissioner to reissue, update LAFC ID cards for the following individuals for the rural fire protection areas as follows. Fire Chief Mike Kobus for Beaver Creek Fire Service Area, Fire Chief Mike Can for the Sprout Lake Fire Service Area, Deputy Chief Derek Sear for the Sprout Lake Fire Service Area, Fire Chief Bill Lavoie for the Banfield Fire Service Area, and Regional Fire Service Manager Charlie Starrett for the Banfield Fire Service Area, Beaver Creek Fire Protection Area, and Sprout Lake Fire Protection Areas.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Steer. Any further comments? Is seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item E, which is a request for decision regarding the Alberni Valley Bulldogs 2023-2024 season promotional package. Heather, do you want to jump up and grab one of these microphones? Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. On the 26th of July, I think it was, in that meeting, the president of the Bulldogs came and presented to you his
request for $20,000 of funding. This would be a proportional partnership model for this season, so the one that's just starting now. And after discussing it among the different departments, we're actually recommending that we stick with what we did last year, which is $10,250 for this budget period. And that would break down as from the Alberni Valley Waste Management, that would be $5,000, and that's for the 2 rink boards that are already there, and $2,250 for the little stair ones, and they're sort and go, so they go up on, I think, on both sides, the stair advertising. And then from general government services, there's $3,000, and therefore, if you've been in the arena, the large murals, they're 3 meters by 3 meters, and they're quite big, and they cover the whole back wall at the top of the stairs. And so we suggest doing that. It's pretty good use for our money, especially since we can change it. We can change what's on there. It's going to cost about $600 if we choose to do that, but just to keep them the way they are, it's $3,000. So the reason this has changed a little bit to that it's not a sponsorship anymore is that the ownership of the Bulldogs is no longer a community-owned team. And so that changes the model a bit. We have to make sure that we get a service out of it. So for this budget, we're recommending $10,250.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions or motions? Director Steer, go ahead.
I just had a quick question. Where does the 10,000 and change, where does that come out of the budget?
Jenny's department had already budgeted for this season. So then that comes out of the Alberni Valley Waste Management Fund. And that's $7,250. And then the $3,000 will just come out of general government.
Director Cote.
Thank you. What do we do with the 104 ticket vouchers?
We don't get them. That was part of the proposal. So, and it's not part of this year's proposal. He cut that. That was out of last year's proposal. They had proposed that they would, for the, I think it was 20,000 last year, that we would get 104 tickets. If you look at this year's proposal, he had eliminated those tickets from our package. We can buy them if we want to recognize volunteers or something. When I actually broke it down, it's more economical just to buy tickets as one-offs. And so if we want to do a volunteer recognition or something like that, we can just do it at the time.
Great. Any further comments or questions? Not related to this, but it occurs to me that maybe the championing of the multiplex had to do with people being really big into hockey. And I wonder if there's a water polo team or some sort of synchronized swimming kind of thing that could be happening.
If they can do as good as the Bulldogs, we'll take it.
You know, I bet you we could. Anyway, with that in mind, we do have a motion here. Anyone willing to move it? Director Haggard, so moved?
So moved.
All right, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Director Beckett? All right, thank you. Last chance comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried, thank you. All right, that brings us to item F, which is a request for decision regarding the West Coast Transit Financial Plan Amendment. Jenny, please go ahead.
Chair, yes, so we're asking the board to adopt a financial plan amendment for us to transfer $86,918 from a stabilization reserve into an operating reserve for the West Coast Transit. We are also going to be taking an update report to the West Coast Committee on October 4th to talk about the information we've got back in the surveys about what the scheduling is going to look like on the West Coast and what that is equals as far as costs for the future financial. But for today, we are looking to do a transfer. We initially set up the stabilization reserve because we did not have a transit service, but we did have some revenues because we had expected BC Transit to be operating one. So we had generated some reserves, and instead of putting them into either capital operating because we didn't know where they were going, we set up a special stabilization reserve. And this allows us to sort of continue to maintain stable taxation when there's uncertainty. Now that we know that we have direction to move forward and set up the transit service in 2023, we would like to transfer those. We have increased costs for the basically implementation that's going to be happening shortly for getting that started first thing this year. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any comments or questions? Director McClellan, go ahead.
Yeah, this transit is on the West Coast. It's been approved, I guess, by the West Coast Committee. The reserve money that you're talking about, which reserve is that and what's it for?
I can maybe let Terry pop in just to explain more what a stabilization reserve is and when we use it. We've done it just honestly for transit in the last couple financial years.
Sure, thank you. So it came from the West Coast Transit Service. We had anticipated rolling the service out, I'm going to say September 2020. And so we had budgeted funds to roll it out. And then at that time, due to COVID and a transit freeze in the province, nothing has happened since then. So instead of negative requisitioning the money back to the taxpayers, we held on to the money in a reserve with those same participants until this is to get going here at this point.
So all this was for the West Coast Transit to start with?
Yes.
Okay, that's
stays
good.
within the service that it was requisitioned from, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. When it's in the reserve, does the reserve fund make any interest? Has that been done in the past? Thank you.
Yes, they are earning interest.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we have a set of motions to do this. I'm wondering if Director McEwen and Director Steer want to take the lead here.
We can tag team this one if need be. That the Alberni Clackwood Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to the bylaw cited as bylaw F1160-1 2023 to 2027 Alberni Clackwood Regional District Financial Plan.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Alrighty. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Great.
Move second reading.
Second reading moved. We have a seconder. Thank you, Director Sparrow. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Move third reading.
Third reading. We have a seconder. Thank you, Director Coates. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried.
And we'll move adoption.
And moving adoption, seconded by Director Cote. Thank you. Any further comment? Years. Okay, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. It's good progress. Okay, that brings us into planning matters, but I would note that it's just after 3. Do we want to take a 5-minute break? I would like to take a 5-minute break. Okay, I'll declare a 5-minute break. Thank you very much. Hey, folks, we got about a minute. Well, technically less, but we'll let everyone come out. Okay, let's kick off again here. So that brings us to planning matters under section 9. 9.1 is for electoral area directors only. You'll see that they're grouped in by area. So the first two are Fort Lake, we get into Beaver Creek and then Cherry Creek. So the first item is 9.1A, and that is I believe, a variance permit. Alex, I think you're speaking to it. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The first one is a development variance permit for a property at 8490 Blowdell Drive in the Sprout Lake area. The application is to reduce the side yard setback for a single family dwelling in the RA3 district from 5 meters to 4.9 meters. The Sprout Lake Advisory Planning Commission considered this application at the meeting in August, where they passed the motion to support the variance as presented. Staff recommended the board consider this variance the first time and proceed with the public notification process, which includes neighbor notification to all property owners and residents within 100 meters. And then once we compile that correspondence, we'll bring it back to the board before the final decision can be made. Happy to answer any question.
10 centimeters. The audacity. Please go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. I make the motion that the Board of Directors consider issuing development variance permit DVD 23005, subject to neighboring properties being notified as the Local Government Act 499. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Siga. Any further comments? Seeing none. All of those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to item B. Alex, go ahead.
Great, thank you. This is another development variance application for a property at Sprout Lake. This one at 10089 Blower Road. The application is to reduce the side yard setback in the for a single family dwelling in the RA1 district from 4.5 meters or 15 feet to 1.5 meters or 5 feet, and to increase the permitted height of an accessory building from 12 feet to 18 feet. The Sprout Lake APC again considered this at the meeting on August 29th, where they supported the variance as presented. The variance would facilitate a more flexible building envelope for the design of a new house and an attached garage on this property. Staff recommendation is that the board proceed with the neighbor notification process and gather input before making a decision on the variance. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Cote.
Thank you. This is a very narrow lot, so this is a good solution for them. I would make the recommendation that the Board of Directors consider issuing development variance permit DVD 23007, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per Local Government Act 499.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item C, item for Beaver Creek. Alex, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a rezoning application for the property located at 6505 Fayette Road in Beaver Creek area. The applicants intend to rezone the 5-acre lot to RA2, which would allow for subdivision into 4 lots. At the August 23rd meeting, the board gave 3 readings to bylaw P1479 following the public notice period. The applicants have now submitted an assessment from a wastewater professional that confirms that sewage disposal capacity can be achieved on this property, and that and the agency referral responses that have been received have been supportive of the rezoning bylaws. So in staff's opinion, all conditions of the rezoning have now been satisfied, and staff recommend that the board adopt bylaw P1479. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Roth?
Yes, I move that bylaw P1479, Regional District of Alberni-Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McClellan. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to item D, an item for Cherry Creek. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. This one is a parcel frontage waiver relating to a subdivision application at 6124 Strathcona Street. The applicants intend to subdivide this property into 2 lots. The frontage waiver is required as proposed lot 2 with the wider panhandle that connects to Strathcona Street does not meet the minimum 10% road frontage requirements in the Local Government Act. This application was discussed at the Cherry Creek APC meeting on August 30th. The members that were there supported the application. And this does appear to be the last step required in the regional district's review of this subdivision application, which was referred to us by the Ministry of Transportation. So staff recommend that the board issue the parcel frontage waiver at this time and have it answer questions.
Dr. Sparrow?
Well, thank you. I'd like to move that the board of directors waive the 10% road frontage requirement for the proposed lot 2 as per subdivision plan of lot B, district lot 146, Alberni District Plan 35521.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. Anyone have a comment? No comments? Great. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. That brings us to item E, which is a rezoning application. Oh, it's got options on it too. Great. Alex, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This one's a rezoning application for the property at 5447 Mayville Road in Cherry Creek area. The applicants intend to rezone the 2.8 acre property from small holdings A1 district to acreage residential RA3 district to allow for a 3-lot subdivision. The Cherry Creek OCP was amended to redesignate this property as residential use in May of 2023, earlier this year. As many of you may recall, at that time, the property owner had applied to rezone to allow for rental cabins on this on a portion of this property. After concerns about the rental cabins were heard from the neighborhood, the rezoning was not supported by the board at that time. The property owner has since amended their development plans in response to those concerns and is now proposing the 3-lot residential subdivision as an alternative that complies with the residential policies and objectives in the OCP. This application again was discussed at the last Cherry Creek APC meeting in August, where the members that were present supported the application. As I noted, the rezoning does comply with the OCP, and staff recommend that the board proceed without public hearing and provide public notice in accordance with Section 467 of the Local Government Act. So the staff recommendation that's presented there is to consider first reading of bylaw P1484 at a later date following public notice given under the Act. And if the board wishes to delegate a public hearing to be held on this application, the appropriate motions to do so are also presented as an option in the report there for you, and happy to answer questions.
Just for clarity, because the new proposed usage fits with the LCP, that's why a hearing wouldn't be required?
That's correct, yeah. Where a rezoning is consistent with an OCP, the Local Government Act does not require a public hearing.
Makes OCPs really important. Thank you. And Dr. Sparrow?
Thank you. I'll go with option 1 and that the board of directors consider first reading of bylaw P1484, Regional District Alberni Clayoquot zoning atlas amendment bylaw at a future date, and that notice be given in accordance with Section 467 of the Local Government Act, and that the board of directors confirm the adoption of bylaw P1484 subject to the meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I do really appreciate the options included in the recommended vote. That's really great. All right, this brings us to item 9.2, which is a planning matter that includes all directors. So Alex, please take on 9.2A.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a grant opportunity to support the Alberni Valley Food Security Society in processing and preserving fruit gleaned from the Society's community gleaning program to promote longer lasting shelf stable products. The intent would be to secure food beyond the harvest months for these community organizations such as Bread of Life and Salvation Army that program supports. The ACRD is eligible for the $10,000 grant that's 100% funded through the Nutrition Link Services. This is a pass-through grant that would be managed by the Food Security Society manager, Anna Lewis, with minimal support from ACRD staff to coordinate an agreement that would ensure that the grant requirements are met. So planning staff recommend that the ACRD pursue this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Using the word gleaning makes me think that there must be some overlap between this group and the literacy club. It's such a great word. Anyway, with that in mind, we do have a recommended motion for the grant. Would anyone like to move it? Thank you, Director Cote. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Haggard. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Great. That brings us into item 10, which is, or section 10, which is reports. 10.1 are area reports. These are new reports where we go through each area and everyone can give a verbal update as to what's going on. That brings us to item A, which is electoral area A, Beaufort. So, Bamfield, sorry. Director Beckett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But I'd like to congratulate the Hawaiian Nation, the work they've been doing on the road and the Banfield Road. And I got notice today that there's going to be a ribbon cutting on October the 10th, as I'm sure you're aware of, Mr. Chair. I'm excited to be attending that. That is an amazing celebration and accomplishment. Item number 2, I wanted to mention that the ACRD, in cooperation with the Banfield Marine Sciences Center, is undergoing water testing in the Banfield Harbor with an eye to looking at how we may clean up the inlet so that once again it's safe for our community and our guests to swim in the inlets in the harbor. And other than that, in spite of the road closure and the challenges we all faced in the region regarding the highway closure, I think it was a very good year in Banfield. Fishing was excellent, lots of tourism, lots of folks walking the trails. It was great to be there this summer. And thanks to everyone's patience and understanding and navigating the alternate route. That's all I'm going to say today about Banfield. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we get to item electoral area B, Beaufort. Since Director Boyko isn't here, Jack, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'll read the report from Director Boyko. Last Sunday, we had a successful town hall. The major concern of participants were the exponential growth of the ACRD staffing levels and associated costs. This is by far the largest cost item in the Beaufort budget. Everyone is looking forward to the next phase of the individual bylaw outreach process for the electoral areas. And the new mapping feature was shown and welcomed as much easier to use than the previous system.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, you turn your microphone on. Okay, next item is electoral area C, Long Beach. Director Siga, anything to report?
Nothing right now, thanks.
All right, thank you, Director Siga. That brings us to area D, Sprout Lake. Director Cote.
Thank you. So just to let directors know that I have a newsletter that's going out possibly tomorrow to the Sprout Lake residents. I've also had meeting with the Somas Fish Flow Committee regarding the very low lake level at Sprout Lake and concerns for people. It's the lowest I've ever seen it, at least by 6 inches or more. So it's a substantial amount of drop in the lake. Going forward, there is the Somas Fish Flow committee that I would like to be appointed to by this board. I know that they're having meetings, I think it's the beginning of October for 2 days, regarding lake levels and how to protect our water resource, knowing that in the future, should other water sources dry up. I know that the city was looking at Sprout Lake as a resource through the pulp mill water line. At this point, I don't think there's any way that that could be utilized. We need to be looking at all water going forward in the valley and within the regional district, and creating a water plan on water conservation in a major way going forward. I know that Tofino was talking about level 4 waters. So coming out of Sprout Lake discussions, I'd like to bring that further to the board for probably for this strategic planning session. But anyways, I just wanted to say how low the lake is and how concerned Sprout Lake residents are at this point. Also, fish habitat is also being affected by this, so it'll have big effects on returns. Also, I had a tour with Mosaic Colin Cosman regarding a cut block that was in our area, and quite satisfied with the plans that they have, and that they're willing to reach out and do community tours and whatever. So that's also in my newsletter. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. That brings us to Area E, Beaver Creek. Dr. Roth.
Thank you. At our town hall meeting this past Sunday, we talked about problems surrounding our bulk water agreement with the city. During our discussion, Beaver Creek residents said they would like to explore other options, including the option of going back to using the Stamp River water source. Most people agree that safe drinking water is a top priority, and they do not have a problem paying for what needs to be done to ensure a stable long-term water supply. We're a small community with about 1,300 tax-paying households. We have the ability to seek federal and provincial infrastructure grants to help pay for advanced water treatment. We also have the ability to access low borrowing rates through the Municipal Finance Authority. All in all, the people of Beaver Creek would like to build a more stable foundation and become self-sufficient. That's mostly what I took away from our town hall meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That brings us to item F, electoral area F, Cherry Creek. Dr. Sparrow.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to talk about a meeting we're going to have on October 12th on the Thursday night between 5 and 7. Hope it's an OCP meeting. We're hoping for it. I can go forward. I will be there just to talk with people and see what I can do. If it doesn't end up being an OCP meeting, then it will end up being a town hall meeting, but I'm hoping for the OCP meeting, we can get moving forward on some of the issues we have with that and get to meet the people and end with more dialogue. I'm hoping to also meet them in January again sometime. And as we get through these reports, we'll have more talk about and dig into what they want to do in their area. I did meet with the water board this morning and talk to them a little bit. They are doing their due diligence and trying to get their system up and running, their new system for their chlorination plant and that, and so the costs are and all that, and so the people are there, and also doing the conversion study parts, looking at that, and we'll get that study done by the end of the year, we hope, so we'll look at that too. So there are quite a few things going on in Cherry Creek. We hope to see what it on 17. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, next up we have the City of Port Alberni. Dr. Means just stepped out for a few minutes. So Dr. Haggard.
Thank you, Chair Jack. Today at Echo Center from 5:30 to 7 o'clock is the parade of programs where you can learn about the different programs offered throughout the Alberni Valley. And the City of Port Alberni is having an open house on September 27th from 6 to 8 at Echo Center. Renovations continue on the interior of this train station. When they're completed, the space will be available for rent for an acre tenant for a Harbor Key area. The city has begun work on the Roger Creek Trail Connection project, has been a long time coming, so I'm very happy to see that work moving forward finally. And the city is bringing forward the emergency resolution to ABCM requesting financial assistance for our businesses and industry affected by the wildfires and road closures this summer. Thank you.
Just for clarity, September 27th was the open house. Is that the same thing as the parade of programs, or is that okay, when is the parade?
Today it's 5:30 to 7.
Okay, today, thank you. Okay, District of Sufino, Director Steer.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just pick up on what Director Cote was saying in terms of the stage 3 water restrictions potentially going into stage 4, and a shout out to the District of Tofino staff, specifically our public works staff, who engineered an in-house solution to basically mitigate us from going to stage 4. It was something that staff collaboratively worked together on. It was our public works group that came up with what I call an elegant solution to something that had been not tried before. So we averted stage 4, thanks to the work of the community, the visitor population, in our businesses, looking at the conservation measures to keep us down the cubic meters that we needed to be at to do that. And of course, with the rain, that has mitigated that. We're actually, I'm not probably allowed to say it out in public, but we are looking at backing off from stage 3 even. So those solutions have been excellent. I'll leave it. Just one more thing. And touching on a few different things that UBCM is coming up, as we're all aware, and some of the things that the district of Tofino will be doing is meeting with Island Health, and some of the issues that will be coming up relate to our hospital district, and such as the potential for moving forward with a hospital, and other things such as our sobering assessment center, of which we had operating money that had been dedicated to it for a couple of years now, but no facility. So we will be certainly addressing that issue in Tofino as well. And then we'll be having conversations about some of the regional needs on the West Coast that directly relate to healthcare and healthcare delivery in our area.
Before we move on, I'm hoping that your staff and everyone at the city or the district took a lot of good notes and could perhaps come and share some of what they've learned in regards to the water measures that you've undertaken, because it feels kind of like a canary in the coal mine kind of thing where we need to learn about that now across the entire region.
Yeah, and some of the constraints in our system, of course, are unique to Tofino, but I think some of the lessons learned would be valuable to the region for sure. Many of us have different water systems and unique, but I think there were some foundational things that I think the district and certainly the staff of Public Works and council, for that matter, in terms of moving forward in those areas. It's something that we question every year, and we're in the midst of and should be completed in December, our water management strategy, which council has been looking at for some time now. So that will be completed in December, and certainly be more than willing to share that with the region for sure.
So maybe we'll look at something in the new year. Thank you for that. Okay, next up is item I, which is the district view Coolidge. Director McEwen, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. The District of Ucluelet went to stage 1 water restrictions on September 1st. So, of course, our water supply is different from Tofino's and is fairly stable, but we, just out of caution, we went to stage 1 on September 1st. Other than that, just busy preparing for UBCM for next week. That's my report.
Great, thank you very much. Looks like next up is Hawaiian. So yes, it's been telegraphed already, but we're looking to do a road celebration at some point during the week of the 9th, probably the Tuesday there in October. We're looking to have completion of the project by that time, and I've driven that several times, and I'm going to drive it again this evening, and it literally puts a smile on my face every time I drive that road. This is something that has been a team effort across so many different tables. So everyone at the board is invited to attend the celebration. We don't have details yet as to where it'll be, but we do know that we want everyone who can make it to make it, especially but not limited to Director Beckett, who was central in I think helping to convince the provincial government to step up on this partnership, as well as Dr. Minions, who was there as well, and very, very important in the support that was given in regards to this particular project. I think the other thing that I would speak to is Kuwait just released an interim report on our old growth situation in our Hahokli, which means our domain. And so we're finding out that perhaps having a better understanding of the land allows us to enable more economic activity and potentially ensure that there's more fiber supply coming to the valley and other places as well. So with that, we'll keep you apprised of the situation, but it's a part of a concerted effort of First Nations to work with the province on ensuring that we are treating our forest with the respect we need to do, but also respect the fact that we do need to continue with economic operations, not just to create jobs, but the Hawaiian First Nations depends on a lot of forestry revenue for our programs and services. So we'll keep that going, but I think that bears mentioning. I'll leave it at that for now. I can go on and on, but I shouldn't. With that, We'll go on to the next item, which is Tokwatch. Director Johnson.
Afternoon. I don't have much to report. We're having our quarterly People's Assembly on September the 23rd. And that's about it that I can think of right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Hochukwasit. Director Coots is not able to make it today. That brings us to Ukrufbit. Director Mastrangelo, please go ahead.
Hello. We have our Youth Glue Top Days coming up and our annual General Assembly that will be held on September 18th. And that is all I have for this report period. Thank you.
Are they both on the same day? The days and the assembly?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's it for reports. I'm wondering if we could have a motion to receive the area reports. Thank you, Director McClellan, seconded by Director Cote. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to unfinished business, of which there is none. Late business, same. Oh, sorry, Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Could we just have an update on UBC on what appointments we've got? Oh, okay.
I can still flag.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Janice will be sending out the full, or has sent out during the full agenda. And then I will be reviewing the final reports that are matching our meetings, and those details will be going to the board on Friday. Just as a reminder to the board that I will be attending a couple of meetings on Tuesday, simply because I've been on the files like inclusive governance and the reroute. Chair Jack and I are going to be meeting with Cowichan Valley just to make sure that we have a connection when we talk about alternative routes. If it does go that way, that we have some listening ears on that side. So we're just going to have that meeting. But beyond that, Wendy is going to be your staff go-to person for UBCM throughout the entire week. My niece has opted to get married, and she chose the UBCM as the date. So I'll be flying to Ontario, and I'll be gone the remainder of the week, coming back at the end of the following week. So Wendy's your go-to person. Wendy and I will be meeting just to make sure that we're briefed on everything and ready. And we're also going to be meeting CAO Fox just to coordinate, because we have similar meetings, and wherever we can, we're going to be sharing messages because we've all been pushing for similar issues across the region. Some of us got meetings, some of us did not. So we're going to try and make sure that all our messages land where they need to land.
Thank you. Are we sharing with the city of Port Alberni and Tofino Ucluelet? Have we got what their meetings are as well? Thanks.
Yes, we are. So yeah, we'll share that with the board as well.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments? We'll move into question period. Are there any questions online? We're checking.
So there's no email responses received, and there are no questions in Zoom. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So if we could have a motion to recess the meeting and go into the hospital district. Thank you, Director Sparrow, seconded by Director McClellan. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Thank you.
Want me to go ahead? Yeah. I do have it. Thank you. I'd like to call the September 13th Hospital District Board of Directors meeting to order. I would like to recognize that we are conducting this meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Shuswap and Huipachesset First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and I'd like to recognize those First Nations with our gratitude and our respect. We have a agenda in front of us. Is there any additions from directors? Is there any additions from the corporate officer?
No additions.
Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Director Steer, seconded by Director McClellan. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We have minutes in front of us from the Board of Directors meeting held on Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. Is any errors or omissions? Seeing none. Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
You're too quick. Can I get a seconder? Second by Director Steer. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No petitions, delegations, or presentations. No correspondence for action. No correspondence for information. No request for decisions. So we'll go right into reports. Banfield Health Center Director Beckett, please.
No report this time. Thank you.
Alberni Quaquot Continuing Care Society Director Sega.
Waiting on the audit and then the AGM will be held.
Thank you. West Coast Native Healthcare Society Director Cote.
No report, meeting the end of this month.
Tofino General Hospital West Coast Directors Director Steer.
No report. I've just checked my email because I've been playing email tag with the site director and the chief of staff at General Hospital. They weren't able to get back in time.
Thank you. Alberni Quaquot Health Network Director Cote.
Thank you. We didn't have a meeting this summer. Marcy's been working diligently through the summer, doing interviews. And we do have a meeting, I believe, with Minister Dix regarding health networks. So looking forward to having that conversation with him. Thanks.
Next is West Coast General Hospital. No report. Any other reports? Can I get a motion that the Regional Hospital Board of Directors receive reports A to G? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Cote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No unfinished business, no late business, question period. No questions. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Jack, second by Director Steer. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you for that. So welcome back everyone to the main board meeting. So now we'll be going in camera, which means that the broadcast will end. The normal practice that we've adopted is that I'll read out and move the motion to go in camera. Every time we go in camera, it's supposed to be based on specific reasons, and that's what the motion identifies. So I'll read it out now. The motion is to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under sections 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district, or another position appointed by the regional district. And 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government, or both, or between the provincial government or federal government, or both, and a third party. With that in mind, I will move the motion to go in camera. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director Steer. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll take all in favor.